Y'all ready to be history?
Get started.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
To the Pro Audio Suite.
These guys are professional. They're motivated.
Thanks to Tribooth, the best vocal booth for home or on-the-road voice recording. And Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Introducing Robert Marshall from Source Elements and Someone Audio Post, Chicago. Darren Robbo Robertson from Voodoo Radio Imaging, Sydney. Tech to the VO Stars, George the Tech Whittam from LA. And me, Andrew Peters, voiceover talent and home studio guy.
Line up, ladies!
Here we go.
And don't forget the code TRIPAP200. That will get you $200 off your Tribooth. And Austrian Audio, making passion heard. Unfortunately, someone won't be heard anymore, which is a sad loss to the industry, is Bob Heil, who's had an illustrious career, kicking off playing the mighty organ and then becoming a pro audio guy. And George, you had the privilege of catching up with him on numerous occasions, I'm gathering.
Yeah, I think more than once. There's just one particular interview from the NAMM Music Trade Show here in Anaheim from 2017, where I had a good long interview. I mean, pretty long for a trade show interview. It was like 9 minutes. And he really got a lot into his history. And, at the time, I think I was remembering, let's get on to the, let's get on to the topic at hand. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He was giving me a lot of his backstory, and now I look back and I'm like, I'm glad I had that chance,
Yeah.
And to really hear it straight from him. I'm sure he told those stories 1,000 times, right? But it was really cool hearing it from him. I mean, he literally created the sound system and envisioned the sound for quadrophenia. That he invented that. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I have a clip here I can play from that interview where he talks about the birth of what he called the birth of rock and roll sound. I think that's what he called it. Here, take a listen.
Just go into the internet, put in the night rock and roll sound was born. It's a true story. It really was the first night, and it was with the Grateful Dead. It's quite a story. They wrote the song Trucking about it because their
Carrying all the gear?
Yeah, their sound man got confiscated the night before because he wasn't supposed to be out of the state of California. We won't get into that. You can go figure it all out. But they come to St. Louis with no PA. Ironically, to where? The Fox Theater.
The perfect place.
Well, there again, the stage manager calls us, you still have all those speakers? And I said, yeah. Talk to this guy. Handed the telephone to Garcia. And then we hit the front page of Billboard because we went on tour with them out of there. And at that time, nobody had ever played through anything like that. I didn't know that. I'm like, this is pretty good.
Right.
Because I had a Langevin board that I had gotten and recording board. I had Macintosh amps. And it was
hi-fi stuff.
It was a big hi-fi. That's what I looked and listened to. It was beautiful. It wasn't just a loud PA. It was a beautiful sounding PA.
Yes, that's new. That was new then.
Well, because of the pipe organ, I learned to listen. I had to voice and tune that. At the age of 15, we started in harmonically. Nobody realizes about the harmonics that are so important. I learned that as a young kid, and it's carried through everything I do. But then I was on the road. We hit the front page of Billboard, and everybody was calling us. One of them was The Who. We ended up with them for 6 years, and from there it was Humble Pie, Jay Giles, on and on and on. But then they took Frampton out. He was a star of Humble Pie. They took him out as a solo act, and his little gal Penny was married in my home when they were 18. She called me shortly after and said, I need a Christmas present for Peter. And I sent her a talk box. You can write the rest of Peter Frampton's history, and it's well defined. You go to our website.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember the talk box, Frampton Comes Alive, and that came out. It was like such a feature, and it was so weird, like you'd never heard anything like it before.
Yeah. What a story, though.
Yeah, I'd love to get into his brain as to how he actually even came up with that idea. I'm thinking he was hanging a lot with the Grateful Dead when he came up with that.
Yeah. Yes, I think I know what you're getting at.
There was some serious psychotropic stuff, activity going on there. But yeah, I mean, the fact that he started, I didn't get that part of the interview, but he started as an organist. So That's, a very high level of musicianship required to play an organ. And then he would set up the organs, he would tune the organs.
He was aware of the organ sound, and those organs have, just to know how the PA sounds, because the organ's a big sound. You're aware of loud instruments.
Yeah, with a lot of sources, every pipe, thousands of pipes. So, yeah, what an incredible background he had and history. And then, he's out there selling mics at NAMM, that's one of the neatest reasons to get to go to a NAMM show is you did get to see, a Bob Heil, and you got to talk to him and interact with him. And, Wes Dooley from AEA Microphones, who grew up repairing RCA microphones,
He's a trip. Wes Dooley's great.
Totally just another
he was
living...
right by our booth at NAMM, actually.
Exactly. A living historian, right? And you get to talk to these folks face to face. It's amazing. But yeah, I met Bob's daughter, who still works for Heil and still goes out to trade shows and, does the beat, and she was very, very nice. And there's just a heck of a legacy there. So he will be missed for sure. And he was a huge ham radio operator, amateur radio as they call it. Maybe
playing organ over the ham radio stations. He has his own station that was just like organ playing, I think, or something.
Yeah, it was over shortwave.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. What a character.
He was also friends, because he's actually he died in Illinois.
Yeah, he's from St. Louis.
Right, but he was friends with Thomas Holman, who was THX. Thomas Holman did the THX protocol.
Oh, he's the TH and THX.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And Thomas Holman ended up, I believe, over with connections to Skywalker Sound and another audio luminary or whatever.
So cool. So, yeah. And then Bob also picked up Bob to be a host on a podcast called This Week in Tech, twit.tv, which was the show that influenced me to start my own show 12 years ago. And he did his own show over there about ham radio. And they did it for quite a long time, actually, until they had to end the show. But they still have his rig that he had built for that show. It's still at the Twit Studios in one corner of the studio, a memory of Bob. So really cool, really, really cool.
The quirkiest thing I thought with Bob was his friendship with Joe Walsh, who was also a ham radio guy.
Didn't Joe Walsh also use the talk box a bit? Did he?
He did. He said later in that interview that Joe Walsh really kind of had it mastered. He really clearly in hearing his interviews and reading his interviews how he was extremely tight with Joe. They were best buddies, and they spent a lot of time talking ham amateur radio together.
Did they go driving in Joe's Maserati?
Probably. And it was actually Joe who was experimenting with using the mics that Bob had made for doing amateur radio.
For doing studio work.
Yeah, Bob hated the crappy mics that amateur radio operators were stuck using. So he made a better mic. And then Joe was like, yo, plug this thing into your studio console. And Bob's like, I never would have thought of that. He's like, I'm telling you, it sounds better than an SM57 or a 58. And he's like, yeah, you're right, it does. and a brand of microphones was born from there. So, his most well-known podcast mic, the one that's kind of the gold standard, is called the PR40. And it has a distinct tone to it. It has a distinct voice.
Is it kind of big sounding?
It's big and it has a lot of cut, like mid-range.
Oh, so it's like a combo of like a SM7 and a 416 or something.
Kind of almost. It doesn't have the top end of a 416, but it definitely has more of a cut. So if you ever listen to Leo Laporte on This Week in Tech, or, any of the shows that Leo does, you'll hear the distinct sound of that mic. It's not a flat or a hi-fi mic. It's a broadcast mic.
But it's a dynamic sounding mic.
Yes. It's a dynamic mic, and its voicing is designed for being heard. Let's just put it that way.
Yes.
The PR30 and the PR20 to me sound a little bit smoother. I like the voicing of them better personally. But the bottom line is Bob tuned his mics by ear, and he said that specifically later in the interview. I wasn't curious about response curves and all this stuff. I would just go by what I thought sounded right. So, those mics are tuned by Bob's ear, and The guy had a good ear, but, probably by the time he got into his 50s, 60s, 70s, he didn't hear everything.
Did all the mics as he made them throughout the years just get brighter and brighter?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I mean, I'm sure he wasn't the only one that put his ears on the mics after, after quite a while.
I'm just joking.
But, no, it's true. I mean, the sound systems I listened to growing up that were often not EQ'd well, unfortunately, are often helmed by a gentleman of an older generation.
Yeah.
I was like, no, too much 2K and 4K.
There's going to be
my
more
ears are
people
bleeding.
like you. You're accelerating their progression towards mixing like you.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, rest in peace, Bob.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your innovation and your good-natured enthusiasm towards audio, and we really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun. Is it over?
The Pro Audio Suite, with thanks to Tribooth and Austrian Audio, recorded using Source Connect, edited by Andrew Peters and mixed by Voodoo Radio Imaging, with tech support from George the Tech Whittam. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and join in the conversation on our Facebook group. To leave a comment, suggest a topic, or just say g'day, drop us a note at our website, theproaudiosuite.com.